Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a big one, the multifaceted rise of China as a global power.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a comprehensive academic study as our foundation, a real deep well of information. It looks at, well, everything from China's ancient roots right up to its current standing in global politics and economics.
Yeah, it's pretty thorough.
And for you, someone keen to grasp the essentials of this, major global shift without drowning in detail, this is for you. We've tried to extract the crucial insights.
Covering centuries of history, intricate political systems, complex diplomatic moves.
The sheer force of China's economy,
Ah.
and even looked at how societal elements like religion fit into the picture.
Exactly. Our goal today is, well, pretty straightforward. To unpack the core factors driving China's ascent and to really understand what this means for the rest of the world.
Well,
So where do we even begin with a civilization as vast and, well, enduring as China's?
it seems logical to start at the beginning, right? With its historical foundations.
Makes sense.
The study points out that China has a continuous civilization stretching back maybe 5,000 years.
Incredible.
And that's not just ancient history. It actually shapes how China sees itself and its place in the world today.
Absolutely. And a pivotal period highlighted is the century of national humiliation, roughly from 1839 to 1949.
Right.
This era marked by significant foreign intervention and loss of sovereignty. You had colonizing powers like Great Britain, Japan, France, Germany. It left a deep scar. This wasn't just about, losing territory. It instilled a profound sense of vulnerability and a determination to never again be at the mercy of foreign powers.
I see.
This deeply ingrained sentiment is, well, arguably a key driver behind China's assertive foreign policy today and its focus on things like technological self-reliance.
That makes sense. It's like a foundational experience that just keeps resonating.
Exactly.
And the study also touches on Confucianism and a historical sense of being, well, at the center of things.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how Confucianism, with its emphasis on social harmony, hierarchy, and this idea of China as a central, more advanced civilization,
Middle Kingdom.
right, the Middle
Yeah.
Kingdom, it contributed to a historical worldview where China saw itself as central. This legacy, though it's definitely evolving, subtly influences how China approaches its relationships with other nations even now.
How so?
Well, the Confucian emphasis on hierarchy and social harmony kind of translates into a preference for stability and a top-down approach to governance. That contrasts pretty sharply with more individualistic Western models.
Okay.
Understanding that philosophical underpinning helps explain China's approach to issues like, say, international order.
Then there's this period called the Warring States. Sounds like a brutal training ground for strategic thinking.
Oh, it absolutely was. A couple of centuries marked by intense power struggles, constant intrigue, deception, open warfare between different Chinese states.
Wow.
But this era wasn't just chaos. It provided a rich body of lessons on strategy, the art of deception, the vital importance of long-term planning, and a deep understanding of power dynamics.
And those lessons still echo today.
Many analysts believe so, yes, that they still inform aspects of Chinese strategic thought.
And even the Mandarin language itself gets a mention as a factor in understanding Chinese perspectives.
It does. The study suggests the complexity of the Mandarin language with its ideographic script has fostered a unique way of thinking and communication. It's a factor that those outside the culture might find challenging to fully appreciate, potentially leading to, subtle differences in how Chinese perspectives on global issues are understood.
Okay, so a long and sometimes very difficult history really sets the stage. What about how China is actually governed today? Let's talk about its political system.
Right. So after 1949, the establishment of a strong political organization under communist rule brought a significant period of stability and centralized development. The Constitution serves as the primary legal framework, outlining the structure of the state.
And the key institutions include the president, currently Xi Jinping, the State Council, and the National People's Congress, which the study says is the most powerful body within that structure.
That's correct. Alongside those, you have the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, the Central Military Commission, the Supreme People's Court, and the Supreme People's Procurator.
Right.
However, a crucial aspect to grasp is the principle of unity of power in China's system.
And what does that practically mean? Unity of power.
It means that the judiciary, unlike in many Western democracies with a distinct separation of powers, doesn't possess full independence.
I see.
It operates within the overall framework and essentially under the guidance of other state and party bodies.
And the Communist Party of China, the CPC?
Yeah.
It's more than just one political party among many, right? It's central.
Absolutely central. The study emphasizes that the leading role of the CPC is fundamental to the entire functioning of the political system. Its historical role in establishing and building the modern Chinese state is considered paramount.
So even though there are other parties?
Yes, while there are other political parties in China creating a system often described as specific political pluralism, the CPC undeniably holds the central levers of power. There's no real question about that.
Right, so it's a system with multiple parties, but with a very clear power dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah. Shifting our focus to how China interacts with the rest of the world, its diplomacy. The study suggests this also has deep historical roots.
It absolutely does. Diplomacy, managing relationships between states, fostering peaceful development, it's approached with a strong awareness of historical precedent and tradition in China.
And this concept of Xi comes up.
Yes, Xi. It's particularly insightful here.
Tell me more about that, Xi.
Think of Xi as not just seizing the moment, but also carefully cultivating the strategic landscape to create opportune moments.
Oh, okay. Proactive.
Exactly. It's a proactive rather than purely reactive approach, deeply rooted in Chinese strategic thought. It's connected to China's diplomatic style of often avoiding unnecessary exposure, playing the long game.
Waiting for the right time.
And waiting for the most advantageous time to act. Exactly.
So a patient and calculated approach rather than immediate engagement in every single situation.
Precisely. And this informs their contemporary two-track diplomacy. On one track, it's very pragmatic, firmly focused on China's core national interests.
In the other track.
On the other, on issues deemed less central, China often maintains a lower profile, avoiding unnecessary entanglements.
And then there's public diplomacy. That sounds like a deliberate effort to shape global perceptions.
Oh, very much so. It's about actively promoting China's image globally. And it has evolved from what maybe used to be termed propaganda to more sophisticated external publicity efforts.
Like what?
This includes significant investments in media outlets like CCTV, the establishment of Confucius Institutes to promote Chinese language and culture.
Right, those are everywhere.
And engaging the vast Chinese diaspora, we're talking over 40 million people to act as sort of cultural ambassadors.
Interesting. The research also delves into something called corporate diplomacy. That's a new term for me.
Yeah, it highlights the increasing role of state-owned enterprises, particularly in sectors like energy and banking, in advancing China's foreign policy objectives.
How does that work?
Well, the Go Abroad project, or Zuchu, encouraged these companies to expand their international operations. This led to substantial investments, for instance, across Africa. The study mentioned that by 2006, around 900 Chinese companies were active in 49 African countries, involved in everything from infrastructure development to debt relief.
So their businesses almost act as extensions of their diplomatic reach.
In a way, yes. These business activities inevitably shape international perceptions of the Chinese state and its influence.
And then there's the rather intriguing cyber diplomacy and this concept of the assassin's mace.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The assassin's mace refers to the idea of employing asymmetric strategies.
Asymmetric, meaning?
Meaning using unconventional methods to potentially neutralize a seemingly stronger adversary. In the realm of cyber diplomacy, this could involve leveraging cyber capabilities to create vulnerabilities in an opponent's systems.
Wow.
This concept is linked to China's National High Technology 863 program, which was aimed at using science and tech to address national security concerns.
Sounds like a very modern and potentially disruptive
Yeah.
element in international relations. Okay, now let's focus on a particularly significant and complex relationship, the one between the United States and China. It's certainly been dynamic.
Oh, indeed. This study gives a concise historical overview, starting with that initial thawing of relations, ping-pong diplomacy in 71, Nixon's visit in 72,
Right.
which paved the way for full diplomatic recognition in 1979.
But it hasn't been smooth sailing.
Not at all. The relationship has also experienced periods of significant tension. After the Tiananmen Square events in 89, the NATO bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade in 99, the spy plane incident in 2001.
Right, I remember that. And the more recent period has really been defined by China's incredible economic growth.
Absolutely. China's ascent to become the world's second largest economy around 2010 fundamentally shifted the dynamic.
And the U.S. response.
Well, you had the U.S. pivot to Asia strategy, then the trade war initiated by the U.S. with tariffs on Chinese goods, ongoing concerns about China's military modernization, the whole Huawei case,
Work out too.
and of course, ongoing tensions over Taiwan, all have played a significant role. We even saw, brief cooperation during the early COVID-19 pandemic, quickly followed by a return to increased friction.
The study brings up the Thucydides trap.
Ah.
That's a rather ominous historical parallel, isn't it?
It is. This theory suggests that historically, when a rising power significantly challenges a dominant power, it often leads to conflict.
The U.S. being the dominant, China the rising.
Correct. But the study also highlights crucial areas where cooperation remains essential, things like climate change, managing global pandemics.
So it's not inevitable conflict.
Well, some scholars argue that the conditions today, with nuclear weapons and deep economic interdependence, make direct conflict less inevitable than, say, in ancient Greece. But the underlying dynamic of a rising power challenging a dominant one is still a crucial lens for viewing U.S.-China relations.
And there's this concept of a Chinese world order that differs from the existing Western one.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the contrast in foundational philosophies. The concept of a Chinese world order, often framed around ideas of community and shared destiny, differs significantly from the Western liberal order that emphasizes individual rights and democratic norms. This difference in underlying values and governance models certainly contributes to some of the ongoing friction.
Okay, so the U.S.-China relationship is this complex interplay of competition and sometimes necessary collaboration. Now, the study broadens the perspective again, looking at China within the larger web of global geopolitical games. What's the core idea here?
Geopolitics, at its heart, is about how geography and political power intersect, especially in the pursuit of control over territory and resources.
Right.
The study revisits Sir Halford Mackinder's heartland theory. Even though it was developed over a century ago, it still provides a useful framework for understanding these dynamics.
The heartland controlling Eurasia means controlling the world, that idea.
Precisely. And the 21st century is witnessing a renewed competition for influence across this world island of Eurasia. It involves not just the U.S. and China, but also big players like Russia, India, and Japan.
And energy is key to this.
A critical aspect, yes, the geopolitics of energy.
Gas pipelines as the new Silk Roads. That's a powerful image.
It really underscores the crucial link between access to energy resources, foreign policy decisions, and diplomatic strategies.
So competition for resources.
Exactly. The competition for oil and gas, particularly in resource-rich regions like the Middle East, Central Asia's Caspian region, and Africa, is a major driving force behind geopolitical maneuvering.
And China's role.
China's investments in various forms of assistance to African nations, often in exchange for securing energy supplies, think Nigeria, Sudan, Angola, are a prime illustration of this energy diplomacy.
And energy security itself is a really multifaceted challenge, isn't it? It's not just about having the oil or gas.
Absolutely not. It involves having sufficient reserves, yes, but also ensuring uninterrupted access, protecting critical energy infrastructure pipelines, ports, and maintaining stable energy markets.
So diversification is key.
Exactly. Diversifying both energy sources and suppliers is crucial. And China's pursuit of energy security has been a major factor in the growth and global reach of its massive state-owned energy giants like CNPC, Sinopec, and CNOSC.
The study also highlights the growing energy partnership between China and Russia. That seems like a significant geopolitical development.
It really is. The strengthening Sino-Russian energy relationship, evidenced by huge projects like the Power of Siberia gas pipeline and increasing cooperation in nuclear energy, it represents a deepening strategic alignment between these two major powers.
And organizations like the STO.
Right. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which includes both China and Russia, provides a broader regional framework for cooperation that definitely encompasses energy security, among other things.
Okay. Shifting from geopolitics now to the realm of economics, the study characterizes China as a really unique phenomenon in international political economy.
It does. China's economic system is, well, fascinating and complex. It's a hybrid, blending market-based mechanisms with significant state intervention. That mix has allowed it to become the world's dominant production hub.
The world's factory.
Pretty much. And its influence extends to major global economic groupings like BRICS.
Right. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They've really emerged as a significant voice on the global economic stage, haven't they?
They have. Formed in the early 2000s, BRICS now accounts for a substantial portion of global GDP. I think the study mentioned 30% back in 2014. They've aimed to increase the representation and influence of emerging economies in international financial institutions.
And China's role within BRICS.
As the largest economy within the bloc, China naturally wields considerable influence. The establishment of the new development bank, headquartered in Shanghai, kind of underscores that.
And then there's China's massive global infrastructure and investment initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. Its scale is almost hard to comprehend.
Truly transcontinental. The BRI aims to connect Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe through this extensive network of infrastructure, ports, railways, roads, pipelines, and investment projects.
Revitalizing the old Silk Road.
Essentially, yes. It includes both land-based economic belts and maritime Silk Roads, with numerous economic corridors spanning the globe, like the Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar one.
But it hasn't been without its share of controversy, particularly in Europe, right?
That's true. While some EU nations see potential benefits, increased connectivity, better trade routes.
There are concerns.
Yes, significant concerns regarding a lack of transparency, adherence to international market-based principles, fair competition, and the potential for what's been termed debt trap diplomacy.
Where countries get saddled with unsustainable debt.
Exactly. Particularly highlighted in places like the Western Balkans, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Albania.
The study also uses the case of Huawei to illustrate the intense U.S.-China rivalry, specifically in the technology sector.
Yes. Huawei's rapid rise to become a global leader in both smartphones and, crucially, 5G technology placed it directly in the crosshairs of U.S. national security concerns.
Leading to sanctions.
Significant sanctions, yes. The trade blacklist, allegations of espionage, security risks associated with their equipment. This case really highlights the strategic importance of 5G technology and China's state-backed drive for technological innovation through initiatives like Made in China 2025.
And the broader trade war between the U.S. and China. That's had widespread repercussions, hasn't it, for the global economy?
Definitely. The unilateral tariffs imposed by the U.S. on a huge range of Chinese goods actions that many argue contravene WTO principles like the most favored nation rule.
Right.
And have had significant economic consequences, not just for the U.S. and China, but for the broader international trade system. Supply chains disrupted, costs increased. It really underscores the ongoing tensions of managing this economic giant with a socialist political system as it navigates global capitalism.
Okay. Finally, the study addresses the sensitive topic of religion in contemporary China, with a particular focus on the situation of the Uyghur population.
Yes, it provides a brief overview first, noting that the concept of religion itself is relatively new in the Chinese language, with historical emphasis more on social ethics and moral virtues alongside faiths like Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism.
And minority faiths.
Right, including Christianity and Islam. It then turns its attention specifically to the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, or XUR.
Where the Uyghur population, a predominantly Muslim ethnic group, has faced really significant and concerning challenges.
The study highlights a history marked by periods of conflict and mistrust. This has been exacerbated, it argues, by significant Han Chinese migration into the region and a shift in the government's narrative.
How so?
Increasingly framing Uyghur identity through the lens of separatism and, more recently, terrorism.
And this led to the camps.
It details the establishment of what the government calls vocational training centers, but what critics and international bodies describe as internment or re-education camps. A significant number of Uyghurs have reportedly been detained there.
How many?
International organizations estimate the figure could be around 1.5 million people. The study notes this would represent the largest civilian mass detention of an ethnic religious minority since the Second World War.
The reports of human rights abuses coming from the region are deeply troubling.
Indeed. The study points to restrictions on religious practices, like fasting during Ramadan, and it references leaked documents.
The China cables.
Right. The China cables, among others, which reportedly revealed details concerning the nature of the detention, indoctrination, forced labor allegations, and the extensive use of surveillance technology, like tracking apps.
And the international reaction.
These reports have led to widespread international condemnation of China's policies in Xinjiang, framed as serious human rights violations.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of the complex and often contradictory aspects of China's rise. So as we bring this all together, what would you say are the key overarching takeaways from this deep dive into China's multifaceted ascent?
Well, in essence, China's rise is a really complex story. It's woven from its incredibly long history, its strategic approach to diplomacy, its geopolitical maneuvering, its immense economic power, and its intricate internal social dynamics. You can't separate these threads.
History looms large.
Absolutely. Its historical experiences, particularly that century of national humiliation, continue to profoundly shape its current ambitions and its approach to international relations.
And the U.S. relationship.
The ongoing dynamic of competition and interdependence with the United States is clearly a defining feature of the current global landscape. That's unavoidable.
Plus the economic reach.
Right. China's Belt and Road Initiative and its broader economic policies are having a truly far-reaching global impact, for better or worse, depending on who you ask. And alongside all that,
The human rights concerns?
the serious human rights concerns, particularly regarding the Uyghur population, remain a critical issue demanding international attention and scrutiny.
It's a lot to process. It really underscores that understanding China's growing global influence requires us to look at it from so many different angles simultaneously.
Absolutely. It's not simply about economic growth charts or military spending. It's deeply intertwined with its history, its culture, its political ideology, and this complex interplay of both domestic pressures and international factors.
So, for you, our listeners, you consider these deep historical roots and the multifaceted nature of China's rise. Here's something to think about. What do you believe will be the most significant long-term impact of its growing global influence on the international order? And maybe what unexpected challenges or perhaps even surprising opportunities might arise from this really significant shift in global power dynamics? Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.